Hello everyone. أهلا بيكم في تعلم الإنجليزية. Learn English. A new day and a new topic. And today we're not talking about a brand new topic, we're just talking about an old topic and we are revisiting it. إحنا هنتكلم عن topic اتكلمنا عنه قبل كده, but today we're going to speak with more details. النهارده هنتكلم بتفاصيل أكتر. So today we're talking about jobs. Jobs اللي إحنا اتكلمنا عنها قبل كده وخدنا some vocabulary related to it. خدنا شوية كلمات مرتبطة بالجوبز وشوفنا structures لما نتكلم على daily routine and related to jobs before. But today we're going to look at jobs from a different aspect. هنبص على الجوبز النهارده بشكل مختلف شوية. So we're going to look at different types of jobs when it comes to dangerous jobs. And we're also going to look at workplaces and what people do exactly at their work. هنبص الناس بتعمل ايه بالظبط في شغلها وبيشتغلوا فين. So let's start and let's look what we're going to study today in detail. So first of all, we're going to look at vocabulary, and for vocabulary, we're going to look at jobs and workplaces. And we're also going to look at grammar. And for our grammar today, we're looking at the first conditional. And the third thing that we're looking at is skills. And for our skills, as usual, we're going to look at reading. So we're going to read something related to jobs and workplaces. Let's now start, and as usual, we're going to start our episode with idioms of the day. So for those who don't remember, an idiom is an expression that we use to sound more native and to sound more natural and to be more fluent. Expressions بتاعتنا اللي احنا بنستخدمها او الidioms دي هي expressions مش مرتبطة بالمعنى الحرفي للكلمات, بنستخدمها عشان نتكلم بشكل طبيعي. So today we're going to look at idioms that are connected to the idea of jobs, commitments, and things that we have to do. So let's start and look at the first idiom that we have. So the first idiom that we have today is cut corners. Cut corners mean to do something the easiest and the quickest way. So which means to do something really fast and quickly and take the shortcut, like we say. For example, your teacher can tell you, you have to study hard for this exam, you can't cut corners, which means ما ينفعش إن احنا نكروت بمعنى أدق. So this is called cut corners. Cut corners means do something really quickly without focusing on it or without doing it well. So you can say, tomorrow I have a big party and I have to do everything well. Cutting corners doesn't work. So cutting corners means doing things that you should do quickly and easily. Or you can say, my sister always cuts corners. She never does her job well. Which means whenever she's assigned a task and whenever she has something to do, she does it quickly and doesn't concentrate. So the first idiom that we have is cut corners. Think about it and think about this idiom. Do you think it's something positive to cut corners or negative? Think about it and think, are you a person who always cuts corners, or you like to give everything its time and you like to exert effort when you do something? The second idiom that we have today is in hot water. In hot water means to be in trouble or to be in a tough situation. So you are sitting alone at home and you're playing with your ball and you break a vase. Oops, a tough situation. Your mom is gonna be angry. So you can call your mom and tell her, Mom, I'm in hot water. I broke the vase, which means I'm in trouble. I broke the vase. I am in a tough situation, or I'm in a difficult situation. I did something wrong. So in hot water means in a difficult situation because I did something wrong or I didn't do the right thing. Or you can say, I didn't study and tomorrow I have an exam. I'm in hot water, which means I'm in a very difficult or tough situation. I'm in trouble. I don't know what to do in the exam. Or you go to school and you forget your books and notebooks and your teacher is checking the books and you're, oops, I'm in hot water, which means I'm in trouble. The situation is bad and I might get punished. So this is called in hot water. So think about it again and think, when was the last time that you were in hot water? When was the last time that you were in trouble? And the next idiom that we have is bottom line. So bottom line is when we say the most important part. There are two expressions that are very similar. Cut the long story short or bottom line. And both are similar to our Arabic نجيب من الآخر. Or to say the most important part or the most important thing. So we can speak about exams again and we can speak about studying. Your teacher can tell you, for this test, there is nothing important and nothing not. Bottom line, study the whole book. So the important part is to study the whole book. So bottom line means the important part of my message is. So you can say, I worked a lot yesterday. Bottom line, I was exhausted. Like, to cut the long story short or not to speak a lot, let me tell you what's important. What's important is that I was very tired. Or you can wake up in the morning and you can tell your sister, I prepared my bag, I now have my sandwiches, I washed my face. Bottom line, I'm ready. So the important part is that I am ready, regardless all the details. So when we say bottom line is I am saving you the details and I'm telling you the important part. So I don't want to speak much, I can say bottom line. So this person, I don't like him much, so he did so. Bottom line, he's not a good person. Like, the important part in this story is that he's not a good person. So instead of talking a lot about something, you can just say the direct message after bottom line. So you say bottom line and your final message instead of speaking a lot. So it has the same meaning as to cut the long story short. Instead of speaking a lot, so to be direct and straight to the point. And this is the third idiom that we have for today. And let's go to the last idiom that we have for today. It's off the top of my head. So off the top of my head means the things that can come to my mind right now or what's in my mind right now. So this is when I speak about something that I can think of on the spot. So for example, your teacher is asking you, give me a list of the important events that happened in Egypt in the last 50 years. So you think and you can go like, off the top of my head, the 6th of October war. So this is like the first thing that comes to my mind or the thing that I can think of right now. Or your mom tells you, tell me something that you've done well in the last 2 weeks. And you go, off the top of my head, I helped you clean the kitchen. So off the top of my head means the first thing that can come to my mind or the first thing that I can think of. So this is off the top of my mind. And this is our fourth idiom. So the four idioms that we have talked about today, the first one is cut corners, which means take something or do something easily and quickly without concentrating with the details. The second one is in hot water, which is in trouble. And we have bottom line, which is to cut the long story short or the important thing is. And the last one is off the top of my head, which means the thing that can come to my mind right now. By this, we have talked about the most common idioms that we can use in our daily life. So let's start with our vocabulary. And as we said, the vocabulary that we have today is related to jobs. And for jobs, we're going to speak about jobs and workplaces. So let's look together and let's see the jobs that we have. Okay, so as we said, we have talked about jobs before. احنا اتكلمنا عن الجobs قبل كده. So some of these jobs will be familiar to you. حبة من الجobs أو المهن اللي احنا هنشوفها دلوقتي is familiar. احنا عارفينها already. So we're going to add on that and we're going to see where they work and what do they do exactly at their jobs. يبقى احنا هنا الobjective بتاعنا ان احنا نشوف new jobs. We will look at some new jobs, yes, but the main focus is for each job that we already know. We want to know the workplace and we want to look at their duties or the things that they usually do. Let's start and let's look at the jobs that we have today. The first job that we have is something that we have talked about before as well. So this one is a receptionist. a receptionist. We have talked about the receptionist job more than once, but we need to think and we want to know where exactly does she work. So if we're talking about a receptionist, we have lots of places that we can find a receptionist in. To start with, the receptionist works in a hotel. So receptionist works in a hotel. And we have other places that you can find a receptionist in. So for example, in your school, you can find the receptionist, and we have talked about this before. And also in a company. So different places, same job. So receptionist in a company, hotel, school, all are okay. But let's think, what does she do exactly in these places? So what are the duties of the receptionist? So if we're talking about the receptionist, mainly answers the phone. So the receptionist answers the phone, or sometimes greets the visitors. اللي هي بتحيي الزوار أو بتستقبل الزوار. So it's either answers the phone or greets the visitors. So this is the first job that we have. And the second job that we have is doctor. And as we talked before, we know what a doctor is. But let's think, where does the doctor work? So the doctor works in a hospital. The doctor works in a hospital. And sometimes we can say in a clinic. Hospital, which is مستشفى, and clinic, which is عيادة. So both are fine. So the doctor works in a hospital. Okay, so now we need to think, what exactly does the doctor do? So he works in this place, but what are the duties that he has to do? So the doctor treats patients. The doctor treats patients. Or we can say checks patients, this or that. So the doctor works in a hospital, he treats patients, or he checks patients. The next one we have is a nurse. And the nurse, we know what a nurse is. The place for the nurse is one of two places again. It's either a hospital or a clinic. Still, same like whom? Same like the doctor. So they both work in the same place, but they both don't do the same job. هما اتنين بيشتغلوا في نفس المكان بس مش بيعملوا نفس الحاجة. So if we're talking about the doctor, he checks the patients or he treats the patients. But for the nurse helps the doctor. So the main job duty for the nurse is to help the doctor. So the nurse works in a hospital or a clinic and she helps the doctor. The next one we have is a pilot. And it's not pilot, it's pilot. So the pilot works in, so the pilot works on an airplane or on the plane. And sometimes we can say the pilot works in the airport, either or. So what exactly does he do? So what exactly does he do for the plane? So he flies the plane. He flies the plane. We know that the idea is drive, but drive is for anything on land. But if it's in the air, fly. So the pilot works in the airport and he flies the plane. Or the pilot works on a plane and he flies it. So we're talking about the job, the place, and the responsibilities. And we have another person who works in the same place with the pilot. So this is a new job that we didn't talk about before. So we have the lady who is on the airplane with the pilot. She doesn't fly it, but she helps the passengers. This is called flight attendant. Flight attendant. Flight attendant. اللي هي مضيفة الطيران. So the flight attendant also works on the plane. And what exactly does she do? If we're talking about the flight attendant, she works on a plane and she serves passengers or she helps passengers. Both are fine. So the flight attendant works on an airplane and she serves passengers or she helps passengers. The next one we have is a musician. Musician, musician, not musician. So musician, musician. So the musician works in a music hall or a concert hall. قاعة الحفلات. So the musician works in a music hall or works in a concert hall. So what exactly does he do? He plays music. So the musician works in a concert hall. He plays music. The next job we have is a singer. So this is another person who works with the musician. So both of them have the same workplace. So a singer, and we have talked about singer before, works in a music hall. What does she do? What's her job or what's his job? So if we're talking about a singer, so the singer works in a music hall and he or she sings songs. The next one is a lawyer. A lawyer. And this is one of the new jobs that we have. Lawyer. 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 A lawyer. A lawyer. A lawyer اللي هو المحامي. So the lawyer works in, where do you think the lawyer works? We can think of police stations, it's okay. And we have an office, it's okay as well. But the main place is court. Court. So the lawyer works in a courthouse or just a court. ممكن نقول courthouse أو court اللي هي المحكمة. So the lawyer works in a courthouse. What does he do exactly? So the lawyer defends people's rights. بيدافع عن حقوق الناس. So the lawyer works in a courthouse and he or she defends people's rights. So defends, defends. Defends means يدافع. So the lawyer works in a courthouse. He defends people's rights. Let's look at another person who works in the same place. So this is a new job as well, which is a judge. A judge. الجudge اللي هو القاضي. So judge. And the first sound that we have is d. Judge. Judge. So the judge works in a courthouse as well. So the judge works in a courthouse. What does he do exactly? He listens to people. Or the judge judges. القاضي بيقضي أو بيحكم في الحاجة. So we can say he judges. يبقى الكلمة بنستخدمها كverb وكnoun. Or he listens to people and then he judges. So he listens and then judges. Okay, and the next job is a police officer. A police officer. And we have talked about this before and we said it's not po, it's p. Police officer. And he works in a police station. So the police officer works in a police station. And what exactly does he do? He helps people. So the police officer works in a police station and he helps people. The next one that we have is chef or cook. Both are fine. So you can say chef or you can say cook. And here the CH is not ch, it's sh. So the chef, where does the chef work? We have different places. So the chef works in a restaurant. Okay. The chef works in a cafe. Okay. And the chef works in a hotel. Also fine. So the chef works in a restaurant. And what does he do? He cooks food. So the chef works in a restaurant. He cooks food. Or the cook works in a restaurant. He cooks food as well. The next one we have is another person who works in the same place with the chef. And if you remember, this job had two different words, one for males and one for females. احنا اتكلمنا عن الجوب دي قبل كده وقلنا ان الجوب بيبقى لها كلمتين، waiter for men and waitress for women. So if we're talking about a lady, she is a waitress. If we're talking about a man, he is a waiter. So we said the waiter or the waitress work in, again, a restaurant. But they have a different job. They don't cook the food, they serve customers or they serve the food. So the waitress works for or works in a restaurant, they serve customers or she serves customers. بكده نبقى اتكلمنا على أهم الجobs or the most common jobs that we can face in our daily life. And we have talked about the workplaces and their job responsibilities. Let's together have some practice for these vocab that we had. We have talked about the most important jobs and the workplaces and what people do in their jobs. Let's do some practice for this same idea and let's look at some people and let's think, where do they work? So here we have, where does a waiter work? So in a restaurant or in a hospital or in an office. So which one do you think is the best option? So if we're talking about a waiter works in a restaurant. So the waiter works in a restaurant. Okay, and for the next one, let's look at this. Where does a doctor work? Where does a doctor work? Here we have in a park, in a bar, or in a hospital. So where? We talked about the doctor, two different places, a clinic or in a hospital. So the doctor works in a hospital. And when we speak about the doctor, always remember to add S after work. So the doctor works. And for the next one, we have, where does a housewife work? Where does a housewife work? Actually, a housewife اللي هي ربة منزل. So this is a person who doesn't have a real job, but she can do some work where? In a TV studio, or at home, or in a building. What do you think the best option is? Yeah, so it's at home. So here we're talking about a housewife. She works at home or she does some work at home because she doesn't really work. And for the next one, where does a police officer work? Where does a police officer work? And the options we have here, in a police station, in a veterinary clinic, or in a hospital. So the best option is police. So police officer, police station. So the police officer works in a police station. So for the next one, where does a reporter work? Where does a reporter work? And the reporter can work for two different places. So reporter اللي هو المراسل. So it can be a television or a newspaper. So let's look at it. In a library, or in a school, or in a TV studio. So which one do you think it is? So yes, it's a TV studio. So we're talking about the television. And where does a lawyer work? Where does the lawyer work? Do you remember when we talked about the lawyer, what it means? Lawyer, محامي. So do you remember the place? Let's check the places that we have. In a court, in a hospital, or in a university. So which one do you think the best option is? So when we speak about lawyer, we're talking about a court or a courthouse. Either a court or a courthouse. And for the next one, where does a vet work? Where does a vet work? الvet اللي هو the doctor for the animals. So this is a doctor who treats animals. So if we're talking about this doctor, is it in a school or in a veterinary clinic or in an office. So if it's a doctor, the doctor's works in a clinic, so it's veterinary clinic. So the doctor works in a veterinary clinic. And for the next one, where does the builder work? Where does the builder work? And the builder اللي هو البنا, the person who builds places. So here the options are in a building site, or at home, or in a police station. So here we're talking about in a building site. In a building site. And for the next one, where does an office worker work? So the office worker or the secretary, which is both are the same, office worker, secretary, or receptionist, they are the same idea. So here we have in a school, in a shop, or in an office. If we're talking about office worker, the best place is office. And by this, we have talked about the most important jobs and we have done some practice for that. Let's now look at some dangerous jobs. لما هنيجي نتكلم على jobs, part of the important things that we speak about is something called dangerous jobs. في حاجات ممكن نبقى متخيلين إن هي مش dangerous خالص and we can find out it is dangerous, and there are some things that we never thought of. تعالوا نبص مع بعض إيه ال dangerous jobs that we had a survey for. كان في survey معمول عليها أو استطلاع رأي, and here we have the result of the survey. So let's start and let's look at the most dangerous jobs in the world. So we're talking about the most dangerous jobs في العالم كله. And here we have them in order. So let's start. When you are sitting at an office, is your biggest risk running out of coffee? So here we have هل أكبر مخاطر الشغل هو إن إحنا ما يبقاش عندنا قهوة؟ So we have people who face real dangers. So not so for these brave employees. For whom going to work every day can be life-threatening. So those people, their life are at risk. حياتهم في خطر كل يوم to help us have a better life. So here comes a list of the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the world. So now we're going to read about the top 10 most dangerous jobs. And number 10 is something that is very common: chauffeurs, taxi drivers, and truck drivers. People who usually drive on the way. So why so? Because the death rate percent is 18.3% per 100,000. So every 100,000 people, we have 18 people who are at risk. So what are the risks for those people? So what might be dangerous? So driving is hazardous. So driving is dangerous for anyone for any length of time, but especially for those that drive for a living. So those who earn living, الناس اللي بتكسب دخلها من الدرايفنج من السواقة, so they are at risk because they drive for longer times. Long hours and boring stretches of road makes staying alert and focused a challenge. إن هم يفضلوا مركزين بعد ساعات سواقة طويلة is really difficult. So this is a challenge for them. While high speeds, very large vehicles and heavy loads make the consequences of even a small error or lapse exponentially more serious. So we're talking about things here that makes life more and more dangerous. So things that they have around them and trying to drive for long hours can put them at risk. So number 10 is drivers. And if we're talking about number 9, this is a job that we didn't talk about before. This is called stuntman, or if we're talking about plural, stuntmen. So this job is related to the cinema and the television. So the death rate is again 18.5% per 100,000. So this is the risk. Let's read about them. So we all share feeling for awe for actors. So we all feel like, wow, acting job is really amazing. And actresses, seeing them perform dangerous stunts. Stunts اللي هي الحيل. So when we see people or when we see actors and actresses doing stunts, we feel like, wow, he's jumping off the car or he's jumping off the bridge. This is really dangerous. In a movie or advertisement, in reality, these stunts are performed by stuntmen. So, stuntmen are replacing the actors or actresses. Even after the advent of technology in this field, so even after we have a lot of technology, still these people are in danger. So, this job is still regarded among the top most dangerous jobs in the world. So still, even if we have safety measures and if we have things that can help them, but still it's regarded as one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. So let's look at the next one, and number 8 is linemen or roofers. So linemen or roofers, linemen, those are the people who set the electricity lines اللي بيمدوا خطوط الكهرباء. والروفرز اللي بيصلحوا الأسطح. So this is 25 per 100,000. So this is the risk. And let's read, why is it dangerous? So first of all, electrocution from the high voltage line. Moreover, they are also at high risk of falling due to high location of the power lines. If we're talking about linemen اللي هم بيمدوا خطوط الكهرباء, we have the dangerous or the risk of electrocution, الكهرباء. And we also have the risk of falling down, which is the same risk that faces the roofers. Falling from significant heights or other risks include that the sunstroke and severe sunburns. Those people who spend long hours under the sun, they can suffer from sunburns or sunstroke. Sunstroke اللي هي ضربة الشمس. So when you spend long hours under the sun, this is another risk. And we have number 7, refuse and recyclable material collectors. So those people who collect garbage and recyclable materials. Why do you think they are at risk? So here the risk is higher. We're talking about 28 per 100,000. Why do they have higher risk? Because in part due to risks associated with operating heavy lifting and compensating equipment because of the way they ride from the house to the house ceiling and on the sides of the back of their garbage trucks. So we're talking about very heavy loads that they carry on the back of their garbage trucks. So these people are at the risk of those heavy loads falling on them, or they are at the risk of exposure to dangerous material as well. So that's why this has a higher risk. Most deaths are caused by getting hit by cars trying to pass trucks while collection of garbage. بس أعلى risk بيقابلوه that they are trying to pass the streets really quickly while carrying heavy loads of garbage. إن هم بيحاولوا يعدوا الطرق بسرعة وهم شايلين heavy loads of garbage. This is the main risk that they suffer from. And for the next one, and number 6, which has higher risk, farmers and ranchers. So farmer and ranchers is a dangerous job. Can you imagine إن مزارع يبقى شغلته خطر? Why do you think it's risky? So if we're talking about farmers and ranchers, we're talking about 38.5 per 100,000. So we're still talking about a higher and higher risk. So this higher risk comes farmers and ranchers face an array of job hazards, including being crushed or entangled by heavy machinery. So we're talking about the heavy machinery or the heavy things that they use, الآلات التقيلة اللي هم بيتعاملوا معاها, so it might hurt them. Being exposed to toxic level of pesticides and other chemicals because they are using pesticides اللي هي الكيماويات أو المبيدات الحشرية that they use for the plants. Being exposed to high levels of that can be dangerous as well. All this while working extremely long hours during planting and harvest season. ده بالإضافة working for so long hours can be very risky as well, especially during planting and harvest, موسم الزرع والحصاد. So these are the most dangerous seasons for them. And for the next one, which has higher and higher risk, it's structural iron and steel workers, الناس اللي بتشتغل في الحديد والصلب. So these people are exposed to even higher risk. So the level of risk that they're talking about is 56%, or 56 per 100,000 people are exposed to this risk. Why is it so? It's so because falling from very structure they build, or despite the fact that nowadays the safety measures are in place. على الرغم ان احنا دلوقتي عندنا safety measures and more safe procedures that can be followed, but still falling down from high places that they are building is a hazard, or is something that might be dangerous. And the tools used by structural iron and steel workers are also potentially dangerous. الأدوات بتاعتهم نفسها كمان dangerous, which further aggravates the risk involved in this job, which makes the danger is higher and higher. And number 4, flying engineering and aircraft pilots. So this makes sense. We can think dangerous job, most probably it's a pilot. So we're talking about 57.1 per 100,000, so this is the percentage of risk. And we're talking about the job of pilot is more dangerous than others because of the responsibility that they carry on their shoulders. الجوب دي صعبة لأن هم على أكتافهم مسؤولية أعلى بكتير. And the risk that they are inherent in their job. It is no news that reputous engines failures have more often and not resulted in crashes. So we're talking about repetition and engine failure. If we're talking about أحيانا المحركات بتعطل. And in this case, if an engine falls and we are in the air وهو طاير في الهواء, so this is really, really dangerous. And this is something that nobody has control over it. ودي حاجات محدش بيقدر يتحكم فيها. The risk involved in the job of a test pilot who are required to test aircraft are far more than an ordinary aircraft pilot. وخصوصا لو أنا عندي pilot هو اللي بيعمل test على الايركرافت، لو بنتكلم على airplane والبايلوت لسه بيتست صلاحية الايربلين دي, this is even higher risk than a normal pilot who's flying a normal regular airplane. And number 3 comes the loggers. اللوجرز اللي هم الحطابين. So this is 68 or 61.8 per 100,000, and the falling of the tree, the timber and logging workers are more prone to hazards than they are required to work under, though weather and geographical conditions. So the dangers that we're talking about here is basically falling off a tree plus the weather conditions. So here we're talking about number 2, and for number 2, this is nearly the most, or 90% the most highest, or the highest dangerous job in the list, because we only have number 1, it's military police and personnel. So the military and police personnel, the people who work for the military or the people who work for police, they are exposed to very high level of danger. Why? This is 102.6 every 100,000 are at risk. So this is a very high percentage for workers, and every state has defense as an essential component. So those people who defend the state, who defend the country, externally and internally. So we're talking about people بيدافعوا عن المكان. So that's why it is hazardous of its existence. Unfortunately, there will be conflicts, whether at a local or national or international levels. When these conflicts run into strong violence, the role of military servicemen becomes paramount. So it becomes very, very high. So we're talking about conflicts or problems that might happen between countries and can lead to extreme danger for these people. And for number 1 now, it's fisherman. And this is the most dangerous job in the world. So if we're talking about the most dangerous job in the world, it's becoming a fisherman. So if you're thinking of becoming a fisherman, you need to know it's very, very dangerous. Why do you think it's dangerous? So here we have the rate is 102.6%. And ever wondered why seafood is so expensive? Many believe it's due to the pricey transportation cost. But the real reason is that deep sea fishing is the most dangerous job on this planet. So for people to go in the deep blue sea, it is really dangerous. The gravity, hardship, and that the fishermen encounter can't be overstated. They are constantly at risk of drowning because of unpredictable nature of sea and weather. So we're talking about something that is really dangerous because the sea and the weather can never be predicted. So here we're talking about the most dangerous 10 jobs in the world. So the 10 jobs that we're talking about here, we're talking about the fisherman on top. Now let's look at the grammar that can help us speak about jobs, workplaces, and dangerous jobs as well. If we would like to speak about jobs and workplaces, and if we're talking about dangerous jobs, there is an important grammar item that can help us speak about that. So the grammar element or the grammar point that we're speaking about today is called conditionals. What do we mean by conditionals? So conditionals are, we're talking about القواعد الشرطية. What do we mean by that? Here we're talking about the very famous if. So if we're talking about fishermen, and we said that this is the most dangerous job. But here we're talking about 100 people every 100,000. So we're talking about, it is a small number in general, but if we're talking about related to other jobs, this is a big number compared to other jobs. يعني الرقم ده مقارنة بالوظائف التانية, it's a big number. But if we're talking in general, it's not a very big number in general. So here we're talking about افتراضات. So that's why we're talking about if conditionals. If اللي هي لو. So for if conditional, we're going to look at 2 important conditionals today. So the first conditional that we're looking at is the zero conditional. And this is the one that we use to speak about real or factual information or real or factual situations. Like what? A real situation, if you go inside the sea, you never know what happens. This is a real situation. We're not talking about something imaginary. مش بنتكلم في حاجة خيالية. أنا جوه المية عمري ما هبقى عارف إيه اللي هيحصل. So we're talking about something which is real. Something that we're talking about a fact. So this is, we call it the zero condition. We're talking about a factual or real situations. So the structure here, if we're talking about factual situation, it's we start with if, and then we have present tense, and then on the other part is another present tense. Like when we say, if you go inside the sea, you go inside the sea, this is present simple. So after if, you go inside the sea. You never know what happens. Again, present simple. So if you go inside the sea, you never know what happens. If you work for a huge company, you have a lot of responsibilities. So we're talking about facts, things that are not having possibilities, حاجات ملهاش احتمالات. حاجة fact that we know for sure. So we start with if, and then present tense, and in the other part is present tense. So we have the main clause and if clause. لما بنيجي نتكلم على present or لما بنيجي نتكلم على الconditional هي جزئين. هم عبارة عن زي جملتين متركبين مع بعض. So we have the first part which what we call the main clause. The main clause وده الجزء الرئيسي في السنتنس. And the other part is called the if clause. والif clause دي البارت التاني في السنتنس اللي جاي جنب if. So we have the if clause followed by present tense and the main clause in the present tense as well. وهنا ما يبقاش عندي لازم أو ضروري إن ال if تيجي في الأول. So if can start the sentence or can be in the second part, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the correct structure. So I can say, you never know what happens if you go inside the sea. Or if you go inside the sea, you never know what happens. So we can switch the two clauses no matter what. So it doesn't really matter if you put it in the beginning or if you put it in the middle. So if can be put in the beginning of the sentence or in the middle of the sentence, both are okay. So this is the first conditional that we're talking about. It's the zero condition. So I feel bad if I eat too much, or I get seasick when I travel by boat. I'm stating facts. مش بتكلم في possibilities, أنا بتكلم في حقائق. So this is the zero condition. And because we're talking about facts, it is the present simple. And here comes the second one. We're talking about the first conditional. طيب إيه الفرق ما بين الفirst conditional والsecond conditional والzero conditional? الzero conditional, when we speak about it, it's zero conditional only facts. I'm stating what is real for sure. While the first conditional, we're talking about a possibility based on something that is a fact. يعني احنا بنتكلم على احتمالية مبنية على حقيقة ولا بتكلم على حقائق حاصلة. So in this case, if we're talking about the first conditional, it's used to speak about possible situation and their possible results. We're talking about the situation والresult المبني عليها. So in real situation are certain. So we're talking about the possible results وحاجة ليها high percentage of happening. حاجة ممكن تحصل بنسبة عالية. So for example, if you pay attention to this presentation, you will learn about the first conditional. So I'm talking about the very high possibility here. You do this, it's a very high possibility that the other thing happen. لو أنت you pay attention, a high possibility you learn. So مش بنتكلم على حاجات خيالية. We're still talking about real facts. Let's look at the structure. So we have the if clause, and in the if clause we have present simple, if you pay attention. And we have the main clause will. You will learn about the first conditional. يبقى احنا عندنا لما بنتكلم على الزيرو, it's present simple and present simple. But in first conditional, we're talking about present simple and will, future with will. لازم highlight very important part. If we will, عمرهم ما بيجوا مع بعض. So the if clause never takes will in its structure. So the if clause is with the present simple alone and the will clause alone. بكده نبقى احنا اتكلمنا النهارده على the important jobs and workplaces, and we have done our reading and we have looked at the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the world, and we have looked at possibilities using first conditional and the zero conditional. بكده نبقى وصلنا لنهاية حلقتنا النهارده. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Bye.